question of freedom, the question of humanism, the question of how do we want to live in the future now, the question of is there something like a human subject, the question of reality, how consistent is what we are used to name reality. These are classical philosophical questions. They are very old. And here I'm speaking as a philosopher, and I remarked that the topic of this conference is a topic, of course, we all have to deal with, and because it's about our world and the organization of our reality. But of course, we don't know what it is. These are concepts: reality, freedom, humanism, or at the beginning of the day, we said, or some people said, it's about us and not about the algorithms. I understand, but this us was questioned, was analyzed and deconstructed, if we want, not only in the last decades. It's in a way you can say the whole history of philosophy is the questioning of the consistency of the world we belong to, and of the subject, the human subject, if it exists as a subject, as an agent, as a human being. So even this is not clear, that the human beings are human. So if we are claiming, let's try to be human, we don't know what we are talking about. And so I think we all are a bit lost, not only me today, but I think this is something we have to confront if we want to influence the future. Sometimes it's good to remember what you know, and then to question the consistency of the concepts that are organizing your thinking, your thoughts, and that means your reality and your view on reality. And and this is what I call philosophy. So philosophy is for me not writing books. I'm writing books, yes, but and teaching, I'm doing that too. But for me, philosophy has to do with these questions. So how consistent is not only how consistent is the reality I belong to, but how consistent are the concepts I'm using for the definition of my reality in order to transform it. So we need an interpretation of reality before we develop the hope, the political hope, the political project of its transformation. Philosophy is about reality. So, but everyone who is doing philosophy and dealing with philosophy knows that people that don't care about philosophy, even if Kant would say we are all metaphysical, that means philosophical animals, even if we don't care, because we care about these questions that popped up today about the question of freedom. Is there a kind of freedom? And the question of reality, the question of the future, the existential issues you spoke about, and so on. So is there something like justice? If maybe we have to accept that because there's no freedom, there's a need to fight for freedom. So here, I'm speaking here as a classical leftist, but I'm also a left critical leftist. I think you have to interrogate your own vocabulary to be critical. We need a critique of the critique, of course. And here, this was the huge project of emancipation, of enlightenment, and a critique of the critique, and even in Immanuel Kant, and interrogating your tools, interrogating your thoughts, interrogating your categories, interrogating your hopes, interrogating your beliefs, and trying to understand, okay, why do I want what I want? Why am I believing in what I'm believing? And of course, we make part of a cultural framework and a logos system, like we can call it, a language game with Wittgenstein, or a political system, and a cultural industry, like Adorno would put it, and that simply means we are affected by structures since a long time. This is not something new concerning our topic today. So the ghosts are there since a long time, and all our realities are organized by ghosts. And also the good hopes are problematic ghosts. And so this is So why I'm using this vocabulary, consistency, inconsistency, by claiming, of course, that the question is not to say there's nothing consistent and everything is completely inconsistent. Of course not, because this table is consistent enough to carry this computer. So, and this chair, I hope, to carry me at the moment, for a moment. And but so when I'm saying nothing is consistent, I'm claiming nothing is consistent in a final way, finally consistent. And this, maybe this was Nietzsche's idea with Nietzsche is not the only one, like claiming God is dead. God is dead is, what does it mean? It simply means the final consistency is lacking. And and when this is lacking, emptiness opens up. And for this emptiness, we have different names in the history of philosophy. So in Deleuze and Guattari, with Nietzsche, of course, it's chaos or the desert. In Heidegger, it's the uncanniness or the uncanny. Often it's the concept of emptiness. Now I'm writing a book that is called Metaphysics of Emptiness. And even in Wittgenstein, you can find in this last book on the last notes on certainty, you can find a feeling for the final inconsistency. Wittgenstein, who is claiming that you can't, you have to go, you have to get in touch with chaos, but don't make the last step. And you stop before. And this, I mean, also for science. Don't make the last step, because the last step is the step in insanity. You lose your mind. And when you go through our culture, you see, okay, many people knew that. We don't want, it's not true that we are curious animals. No, we don't want to know. We don't want to know. And this is why we construct this kind of consistencies around this ontological emptiness, like I would call it, and for which the different philosophers found different names. And and what is an experience in philosophy if it's not only the experience of a book? It can be an experience via the experience of reading, and a reading experience. But the real experience is an experience that brings you so close to this chaos that suddenly you have the fear to feel your mind and to lose your mind. And this you can find in Wittgenstein. Quite often he claimed, I have to take care, I have to take care. And when we read Lacan as psychoanalytical philosopher, he said too, don't go too close. And if we read Maurice Blanchot, we understand it's too much light is the problem, not the night. Too much light. When you suddenly make the experience of total evidence, then you lose your mind. Don't get too much in touch with yourself, because, and this is not Buddhism here, even in the tradition of Occidental philosophy we have this. The experience of emptiness, the experience of nothingness, the experience of the chaos, the experience of too much light, the experience of insanity, the experience, the horror of evidence, the horror of transparency. And then you lose ground. And I think our topic has to do with we have to understand we are all conservatives, we are all liars, because we are all constantly constructing some ground. But these narratives, they function, they have a precise function, not to get crazy, to believe in something that finally is not based on a deeper ground. It's just, there's a ground, but the ground is not based on a final ground. So, and if we understand this dialectics between consistency and inconsistency, there's no need anymore to say we are totally fucked up, or there is hope for the world. I think we are even not totally fucked up. So this would be a pure narcissism to claim there's the narcissism called idealism in philosophy. That is a narcissism of the illusion of the firm ground, or a substantial human being, and like a naive tradition of humanism is claiming. And this naive tradition of humanism, of course, was deconstructed. And the whole history of philosophy is the history of the deconstruction of our illusions, of our doxai, of our opinions. But the second step to make is, of course, to understand, even if finally you are lost, because we will die, but you are not completely lost. This too we have to accept. And here I'm not praying here, I'm sorry. But I just want to say, if you want to understand this dialectics between consistency and inconsistency, or reality and or realism and idealism, were always false options in philosophy. So even if people come to me today and say, what do you think about speculative realism? There is no philosophy that is not speculative realism. Plato is a speculative realist, and Hegel for sure. So, I mean, lost in thinking can be dramatic.